All right, everybody, I'm going to make a video, and my 3-year-old son is next to me, and I have to make this video now, and he's going to be part of it, so there might be some noise and some talking. But the basis of this is I'm just going to use Photoshop to show you how you can switch colors around to get a contrast of hue, value, or intensity. The example we have here is contrast of value. And what this is, there's a light tone of green, a darker tone of green, and a middle tone of green. And the middle tone of green looks darker on the lighter background and lighter on the darker background. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to use a different set of colors and create the same effect. And so I'm going to select blue, and we'll go with a dark blue. And then we'll go with the light blue. Actually, I'm going to use the same blue, though. If you look over here on the right-hand side, this is my my palette. And so I'm going to use the same blue. I'm just going to use a lighter tone. Okay. So if you look at this, the way this is designed, the Photoshop is on the left side is saturation. On the far top right-hand corner is intensity. And the value is also read vertically. And anywhere in between is, if you stay up high, you're going to have the most intense color, but different values. And if you go down low, you're going to get a grayish version of that color. So I'm going to stay up high because I don't want to deal with gray yet. And then right now I'm going to fill this in. Now I'm going to fill in the middle part. So I'm going to pick a middle hue. So I just kind of use my color picker in the middle here, and I'm going to fill this in and fill this in. And there we have a light blue, a dark blue, and a middle tone blue. But I'm going to just make this blue just a little darker. I think that works better. Okay, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the original, and I'm going to talk about contrast of intensity. I'm sorry, contrast of hue. So what I'm going to do here, violet is a nice example to use because there's violet, there's red violet, and there's blue violet. So I'm going to pick a kind of a neutral violet here. Excuse me. And I'm going to use this violet on this side. And then I'm going to pick actually, I take that back. I'm going to use the neutral violet for the color that I'm going to select. So let me just go back to my color finder. I'm just going to go back, edit, undo. I'm going to pick a blue violet, something along the lines of this. Okay, so I'll pick that on this side. And now I'm going to pick a red violet and something something around here. Now, because the blue violet is a little bit darker in value, I'm going to go back to my original color. And I'm going to pick this guy. There it is, my color picker. I'm going to go back to my original color, and I'm just going to pick a lighter value blue violet. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Darn it. There we go. So now I can. All right. Now, because these colors are similar in value, value is not going to play a role. I don't want value to play a role in this example because I want you just to see the hue shift. So I'm isolating the hue shift. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my color, and I'm going to select something in the middle, about right here. And I'm going to pick a color.
Dada, I want to see what. Dada. I want to see what in my painting.
And as you see this,
Hey, Dada.
So you see the example here that I found a color that's in the middle between these two. And this is a more of a red violet. And over here, it appears more blue. So that's an easy example of creating contrast of hue. So let's do that with a different color. Let's go with since I'm going to use this green here. And so what I'm going to do is just pick, I'm going to pick more of a yellow color. And I'll go with maybe a yellow that looks like this.
Turn this way. I need.
And I'm going to fill that yellow in here.
And
And now I'm going to look for a yellow green, a mixture between these two. And let's just go with this guy. Great. So what I'm going to do is fill this in and fill this in. So on this side, that color is going to appear more yellow. And on this side, the color is going to appear more green. And you can see that effect. So that's when you use the color wheel. You look at your color wheel and you can pick two colors that are a step or two apart from one another and then find a color in the middle. In this case, I used green and yellow, and then I put a yellow green in the middle. And you can play around with the different types of yellow greens. You know, if you want to pick one that's a little bit more intense, see if that does anything different, but it's still going to have a similar effect than what I previously had. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about contrast of intensity. So I'm going to I'll go with this green on this side, and then on the opposite side, I'm going to go with a gray.
My God.
And I want these green and gray to be similar in value as well, because I don't want value to play a role. I just want intensity to play a role. Now I'm going to look for a greenish gray. So you can kind of see where I'm picking right here. I'm kind of picking somewhere in the middle, and you can see the color right here. And I'm going to fill that in here and here. And if you just let your eyes rest, and if you focus on the center here, you'll notice that this feels more, that it has more hue, more green to it. And this feels that it is gray on the gray side. Now, should I go with something that's just a little bit more lighter in tone? Do I get a better effect here? Possibly. Do I want to play around with that value just a little bit more? Go with something just a smidge darker. Do I get a better effect here? I think that's a pretty good one. I like that one. So that's it. That's a nice way of creating contrast of intensity. Now I'll show you an advanced version of creating contrast of intensity. I could also switch this gray background to be in kind of an orangey color.
I feel stronger.
And I'm going to get the same effect. Why? Because the complementary hue of orange is blue, but blue is in green. So that's why this green starts to appear more green. Let's try red. Do you think that might do it a little bit more? Let's try it out. Yeah, I think this actually helps out even more. So the complementary hue of red is green. So that's why this appears even more green. And then on this side, it appears what is happening is the complementary hue of green is red. Red is mixing with this desaturated green, creating more of a desaturated outcome. And that's why this appears gray. So that's another way of figuring this out. And that's it. That's some basic ideas. And if you want to play around with contrast of hue, there are some fun examples you can play around with outside of using the color wheel. I mean, you're always going to refer to the color wheel, but you can think of complementary hues as well. So let's just do, let's do a really light violet. And then on this side, let's do a, what kind of violet? It's kind of a bluish violet. You know, let's go down to more of a blue violet. And then now I'm going to go to Hold on a second.
It is
What I'm going to do is reference my color wheel. So I have a blue violet, right? And now I can use a yellow orange. So I'm going to see what happens when I use complementary hues as an experiment. Boy. Sorry. It's part of the process. So now I'm using yellow orange. Gonna stop this for a second. Okay, so now I have these two colors. They're about the same value, so value's not going to play a role. And I'm experimenting. I'm seeing what happens. So I know they're opposite sides of the color wheel. And you want to think about middle mixtures for this. Ignore the green. The green's not there yet. In a sense, it kind of is, but it's not there. I want to think about the middle mixture between the orange and the violet. Because they're complementary hues, whenever you mix something that's on opposite ends of the color wheel, they're going to gray each other out. So now I'm looking for either a grayish orange or a grayish violet. So what I could do is I could try both and see what happens. So this would be a kind of a grayish violet. And this actually creates a nice contrast of intensity because this looks really gray here and this looks violet here. So that doesn't work for my contrast of hue, but it's a good contrast of intensity. So that's a nice like experiment and just trying to see what things happen is what I want you guys to do. Now, the next thing is let me see if I can try to find a grayed out orange. So that would be a grayed out orange, and I'm going to fill it in here and fill it in here. Ironically, this does the exact opposite. It's gray on this side, and it's actually compared to the gray, it's orange on this side. And that's because the complementary hue creates that. Now, what if I were to change the background of the orange a little bit to maybe something that's kind of more on the red side? Does this change it at all? It starts to. So this becomes more on the green side. And compared to this, this becomes more on the orange side. So then that would be contrast of hue. So I'm starting to change the contrast of hue, whereas before orange made this gray. And now this is starting to turn into green. And remember, complementary hues, your eye sees the opposite. So the colors of Christmas decorations, usually red and green. So it's an easy way to remember that. Let's see if we can adjust the red to a little bit more of an intense red. I'm curious what that would happen. Does it make it more, does it push the green more? I think it does. And see this color here? Do you think if we adjusted the violet to more of a cool violet, or I'm sorry, more of a warm violet, would that change? Or if we went more towards the blue color, let's try blue. Does that kind of push the orange aspect of it? Yes, it is. It is definitely pushing the orange aspect of it. So you can kind of see that I'm making these adjustments. I'm not going too far from where I started, but I'm pushing it cool. I'm pushing it more red. I'm doing stuff like that. And this is a really good hue shift. So this is orange, and this one's green in comparison to one another. It's not bright orange, not bright green, but in comparison with one another, that's the change. And it's also nice to kind of see this strip here. I make a nice strip. And I fill the strip in. And it's all the same. Once you put the strip down, you can kind of you can see that difference. I'm also curious if I were to even push this blue just a little bit more to see how you get a better effect. What would this blue be? I think that's starting to help a little bit more. The value, though, I just want to have a little bit darker. So maybe I'm going to adjust the blue right there. I think that's even better. But they both, I think, work just fine. So that's a way to change hues, values, and intensities. And just keep experimenting, trying things out, and see what you discover. Alrighty.